Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiv Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nashtuprayeshu Avadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. So continuing with the discussion on Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita by Satsvarup Das Goswami, Volume 1, A Lifetime in Preparation, India, 1896 to 1965. Chapter 7, Jhansi, the League of Devotees. So Prabhupada is in Jhansi and he has started League of Devotees and marked a place, a temple that could be their center. So further. During December and January, Abhay prepared a League of Devotees charter. He wanted to begin vigorous, extensive preaching, following the example of his spiritual master. Once he began to set his goals to paper, the project immediately began to expand beyond Jhansi, beyond India. Of course, the League of Devotees was for the young people of Jhansi. They were already expressing great interest. But Abhay's charter described more than merely evening classes and kirtan. It was a broad scheme, including a description of the four orders of society, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and detailed plans to accommodate a worldwide religious movement. The charter set forth a probationary period for prospective members. It described spiritual initiation. It arranged for economic reciprocation between individual members and the League. It arranged to provide lodgings for preachers, and it defined prohibited activities such as illegitimate connection with women, intoxicating habit, diets other than regularly regulated strictly on vegetable kingdom, gambling, and unnecessary sporting or recreation enterprises. To establish his league with the registrar in Lucknow, Abhay required a memorandum of association signed by the league members. In this document, which was to list the objectives of the society, Abhay expressed his vision for the continuation of his spiritual master's mission. Like his god brothers who had created new mathas after the dissolution of the Gaudiya Math, Abhay was forming a new branch of the Gaudiya Sampradaya to be called the League of Devotees. He was not simply claiming proprietorship of a few buildings. He was establishing a Krishna-conscious society that would expand into a world movement. His intentions were clearly not insular, but were directed towards creating centers for spiritual development all over the world. Abhay wrote, Lord Chaitanya revealed the transcendental process of approaching the absolute Godhead. And in his teachings, nothing appears to be absurd from the point of human reasoning, and nothing against any religion as accepted by the human and civilized world. In enumerating the League's goals, he included the opening of centers in all parts of the world, thus establishing the League as an international organization for spiritual development through education, culture, as also by recruiting members from all nations, creeds, and castes. The League would publish literature in many languages and print a monthly magazine back to Godhead. So he always had bigger and bigger plans. League of Devotees. Right now in Jhansi, he just had few well-wishers. And his plans are, it should be a worldwide movement. And for spiritual development through education, culture, as also by recruiting members from all nations, creeds, and castes. That's a leader's vision, actually. Abhay obtained the necessary signatures for his memorandum of association. He then took the train to Lucknow and on February 4th, paid the deposit of 50 rupees and filed his application. He returned to Jhansi. In his room in the Radha Memorial, Abhay would rise daily at 4 a.m. and arouse his younger neighbor, Prabhakar Mishra. From 4 to 5, Abhay would write. At 5, he would walk in the Antia Tal area. At 5:30, bathe and then chant Hare Krishna on his beats until 7, when he would hold a class on Chaitanya Charitamrita or Srimad Bhagavatam. Although Prabhakar Mishra was usually the only listener. At 8, he would return to his literary work, tapping until after 10, when he would begin to prepare a meal. In the afternoon, he would often go around Jhansi, meeting people and preaching, looking for anyone willing to take part in the League of Devotees. In the early evening, he would write until 7, when he would prepare for the kirtan and lecture, where he would hold at one of various places in the city, depending on where he was invited. Although Abhay had no money for continuing back to Godhead, a well-established part of his preaching was to write essays, regardless of whether they were to be immediately published or not. He wrote a long essay, some 24,000 words, entitled Message of Godhead. He also wrote a series of chapters propounding the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, especially as applied to world problems and science of devotion, a summary study of Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. On May 16, 1953, Abhay held a grand opening celebration for the League of Devotees with continuous readings, kirtan and prasadam distribution from early morning until night. The buildings were decorated with leaves, flowers and many earthen water pots. In the evening, when attendance was the greatest, Abhay lectured from the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita on Raja Guhya Yoga. Prabhakar Mishra conducted a fire sacrifice and several Brahmins chanted mantras from Brahma Samhita. Guests received a 16-page prospectus containing Abhay's essay on the need for the League and an excerpt from the charter explaining its goals. It was signed Om Tat Sat Abhay Charnaravindo, Bhaktivedanta founder and secretary. The opening was a pleasant, auspicious event for the people of Jhansi, and hundreds gathered in the evening for Abhay's lecture. Dr. Sharma, a charter member of the League and editor of the Jhansi daily newspaper, had already publicized the event and was planning a write-up for the following day. The Gaudiya Patrika also reported on the opening. The editor of the local Theosophical Society, Sri Lakshmi Narayan Rajapalli, was also present, although he holds different philosophical opinions from Bhaktivedanta Prabhu. He is very sympathetic with the movement. In the assembly, there were many people worth mentioning. The inauguration and establishing of deities will be done soon. The assembly will request Rajapati Shri K. Munshi to perform the inauguration ceremony. The center has been registered by the Society's Registration Act. Shri Bharti Bhavan is the name of the League's building, in which they have a lecture hall and a temple that resembles a palace. The assembly has many activities at the center. And there are also facilities for members to live there. Abhay felt confident that the Bharti Bhavan would now be established and recognized as the home of the League of Devotees. He was happy to see that the opening day was not merely his private affair, but an event celebrated by the most important citizens of Jhansi. His past life was seeming further and further behind him each day. But one day, after he had been in Jhansi for about 6 months, a telegram arrived, bringing a startling reminder of his past connections. His business in Allahabad had been burglarized. His servants had stolen all his money and medicine and anything else of value. It had been a loss of 7,000 rupees. Abhay read the news, laughed, and uttered the Bhagavatam verse, Yasyam Anugaranami Harishyatab Dhanam Shanay. Prabhakar Mishra advised Abhay to go to Allahabad to recover what he could. No, Abhay said, this is good for me. I was sad, but now one great attachment has come to an end. And my life is fully surrendered and dedicated to Shri Shri Radha Madhav. Abhay's son Brindavan soon arrived in Jhansi, requesting Abhay to come to Calcutta to revive the business. Abhay Charan and Sons. As they sat together in Abhay's room at the Radha Memorial, Abhay explained that he could not go back. He requested Vrindavan to stay and assist him by doing typewriting. But Vrindavan returned to Calcutta. So lost business, lost his family, everything is gone. From his first meeting with Prabhakar, Abhay had urged the younger, educated man to take part in the League of Devotees as a full-time assistant. Although as a lecturer and medical officer, Prabhakar had many duties at the university. He helped as much as he felt he could. He soon became Abhay's most active assistant. Abhay appointed him secretary to the League and after several months initiated him. Thus Abhay became Prabhakar's spiritual master and Prabhakar became Abhay's first disciple. So yes, Dr. Prabhakar Mishra was Prabhupada's first disciple outside ISKCON. But once he started ISKCON, then he had plenty of disciples. As a preacher, Abhay was duty-bound to accept disciples, giving them the Hare Krishna mantra and the Parampara instructions as he had received them from his spiritual master. Prabhakar, however, not being a completely surrendered disciple, remained independent, more like an assistant than a disciple. As university principal, Sanskrit scholar, and medical doctor, he continued to pursue his own interests also. Srila Prabhupada, that league of devotees, I was alone. There were some students, but they were not so active. I was doing everything. I wanted to organize with Prabhakar Mishra and others, but they were not interested to devote their whole time. If we asked him to do full-time work, then that he would not do. But he was initiated. They were all learned scholars in Sanskrit, medical men, because they were Ayurvedic doctors. Thus, when the Gaudiya Patrika had reported the opening day celebration ceremonies, it had referred to Prabhakar in honorable terms as of his partner in the League of Devotees, although he was actually Srila Bhaktivedanta's initiated disciple. Bhaktivedanta Prabhu summoned the service of the Honorable Acharya Srimad Prabhakar Mishra Shastri, Kavya, Poetry, Vyakaran, Grammar, Vedanta, Philosophy, Tirtha. Kavya, Vyakaran, Vedanta, Tirtha. BIS MSA to perform the sacrifice. He is a principal of a college in which the Vedas and Vedangas are taught and degrees are given. He is also the assistant manager of the League of Devotees. According to time and circumstances, Abhay was engaging this young man in devotion service. Abhay was interested not in collecting disciples, but in establishing the League of Devotees, and for that he needed assistance. Prabhakar Mishra, so what he said, when I first met Swamiji, he said to me, you are a Brahman and Prabhakar, and you are eating in a restaurant. You come with me, I will feed you myself, and I shall cook. So we would prepare prasadam and offering it to the Lord. We would take Bhagavad prasadam together. In this way, by his mercy, I got the chance to take prasadam. He also said to me, you become Keshahina, Shevan. So I went with shaven head to the college where I taught, and everyone laughed at me. When I told Swamiji the situation, he said, since you are a medical officer, you can grow out your hair. Then I took Diksha. Swamiji gave me my name, Acharya Prabhakar. My original name was Prabhakar Mishra. So he said, you don't write the Mishra, you are Acharya Prabhakar. He gave me the name and offered me a tulsi mala and put tilak on my forehead and tied a kanti mala around my neck. He had registered the foundation of League of Devotees and he appointed me as its secretary for preaching throughout the world. We used to go to the villages for Sankirtan and Bhagavad Gita Katha continuously. Abhay started a Sankirtan movement in Jhansi, at first accompanied only by Acharya Prabhakar. He used to walk about the neighborhood of Nai Basti, chanting Hare Krishna. As he continued this practice, his group gradually increased until 50 people were gathering regularly to go out on parikrama, chant together and visit temples. Afterwards, they would gather at the Radha Memorial for an evening lecture. When Abhay would go to preach in the nearby villages, he would usually be accompanied by whatever league members were free. Once he went with Acharya Prabhakar on Padayatra, traveling on foot and preaching, to Chiragaon, some 20 miles from Jhansi. In Chiragaon, there lived a nationally known poet, Maithili Sharan Gupta, who received Abhay and his disciple at his home for dinner. Abhay told his host that since he was an accomplished poet, he should write something about glorifying Krishna, and the poet agreed. After preaching in Chirgaon, Abhay and Prabhakar returned to Jhansi, spending one day in each of 5 villages along the way. At night, the villagers would gather and Abhay would lead Kirtan. He explained to Prabhakar that although most of these simple farmers were not scholars in Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, they could achieve the highest spiritual benefit simply by Kirtan. Abhay was well received by the villagers, who begged him to return soon, but to give them notice next time, so that they could prepare a proper reception. While preaching locally, Abhay was simultaneously working to give an international scope to his League of Devotees. He wrote to government agencies asking them to help him expand his genuine education project. And he also tried to recruit preachers from amongst his friends. He wrote to his old college classmate, Rupen Mitra in Calcutta, inviting him to join in worldwide missionary activities. Again, worldwide missionary activities. My mission desires to train up 40 trainees. I have asked help from the government for this useful educational purpose. I want that you may be one of the trainees in this regard, and you can ask Karthik Dada to join us in this spirit. You will know from the paper sent to you how we live and what we do, and thus you can make up your mind whether it is possible for you to join us. The first thing is that we want to train up some retired men in the Vanprastha life and some young men in the Brahmachari life. I have no inclination for the sannyas life, which is rather a difficult job for the fallen people of this age. The so-called sannyasis in red garments have spoiled the good name of such order of life. Abhay also called us Rupen. Kindly let me know the charges of this advertisement in the English and vernacular papers of Calcutta. See his vision. He wanted to have 40 trainees, and which they would go around and train more people in this path. So at that time, he didn't want any sannyasis because it's difficult. But obviously, later on in ISKCON, he initiated many sannyasis. Educational, the advertisement was wanted candidates from any nationality to qualify themselves as real Brahmins for preaching the teachings of Bhagavad Gita for all practical purposes throughout the world, throughout the whole world. Deserving candidates will be provided with free boarding and lodging. Apply A.C. Bhaktivedanta, founder and secretary of the League of Devotees, Bharti Bhavan, P.O. Jhansi, UP. Abhay wanted a deed stating that the Bharti Bhavan belonged to the League of Devotees. So far, he had only a promise. Thinking of Jhansi as a permanent headquarters, he wanted a written commitment. When he approached Reva Shankar Bhayal for his deed of gift, Mr. Bhayal gave Abhay a form requesting him to pay 500 rupees to register the buildings. But since Abhay had just suffered a loss of 7,000 rupees in Allahabad and recently spent 3,000 rupees in his preaching, much of it going towards the opening day festival, he found himself unable to raise even 500 rupees. Acharya Prabhakar, despite his academic position, had very little money and was being subsidized by his parents with 3 rupees a day that he would get from his parents. Most of Abhay's congregation, especially the students, were in a similar position. Mr. Bhayal's request of 500 rupees didn't seem urgent, nor did he say what would happen if Abhay could not pay. But he soon made another request. Mr. Abhay Charande should buy the Bharti Bhavan for 5,000 rupees. Sounds like a very big amount for that time. But that was his proposal. It was disconcerting. The generous gift had turned into a purchase offer. The people in town were already referring to the property as Abhay Bhaktivedanta's ashram, and the League of Devotees was printed in large letters across the wall of the compound. When pressed by Abhay's friends, Mr. Bhayal assured them that Abhay could go on living there, but ultimately he would have to buy. Mr. Bhayal said he would give the League of Devotees first consideration and a good price. Abhay worried, not knowing what the landlord would do next. If the League could purchase the property, that would be best. But he had been unable to raise even 500 rupees. 5,000 seemed impossible. Abhay found no strong financial backing from his congregation. His league did not include even a single full-time worker. He did not know of one way to raise money. His pharmaceutical, oh, I'm sorry, he did know of one way to raise money, his pharmaceutical business. He still had a small operation being run by his son in Calcutta. Abhay had formerly been earning 3,000 rupees a month. He considered approaching God brothers for help, but the prospects for earning the money himself seemed more likely. For 30 years, he had earned money by his pharmaceutical business, and he could do it again for the most worthy cause. See how much he had to go through. When he arrived in Calcutta in the spring of 1954, he was without money. He chose to live with his god brothers at the Gaudiya Sangh in Jetla, the same neighborhood his family lived in. Since he had no money, the head of the ashram bore his expenses. Abhay gave daily discourses on Srimad Bhagavatam, which the Gaudiya Sangh brahmacharis highly appreciated. Krishna Kumar Brahmachari. Even after he left, his sweet, melodious voice would ring in my ears. He used to often express a desire to go abroad and preach. One of his sons was running a small business, Wimbledon Laboratory, and thus supporting the family. Abhay knew that his wife would not be interested in his work in Jhansi. His son had been there but had not been impressed. The family would see his preaching in Jhansi as a threat to their home life. Abhay, however, was sustaining himself by his vision, which was now taking practical shape of a world reformed by Krishna consciousness. He even thought of opening a branch of the League of Devotees in Calcutta. But inevitably, he was plunged again into family responsibilities. Some of the children were still unmarried, rent and bills had to be paid. Even if he were to develop the Wimbledon laboratory, the family would demand whatever he earned. And even if he were to accede to their demands, live at home and give up preaching, the greatest difficulty would still remain that they were not serious about devotion service. Nor could he change them. What was the use of conducting a business if they would not be devotees? He visited his family and the same old scene occurred. Local friends came to visit and Abhay began preaching, giving Bhagavad Gita classes just as he had been doing in Jhansi. Meanwhile, his wife and the rest of the family would take tea in a separate room. So discouraging for him, but but he had full faith in Krishna. So how things fold out, we'll read it tomorrow. So we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.